Welcome to AFI Fest presented by Audi. My name is Sarah Harris. I am the Director of Programming for AFI Festivals. Thank you so much for watching. First, I want to thank our sponsors and supporters of the festival, including our presenting sponsor, Audi, our AFI members, and you, our audience. I'm honored to be here today with the cast and crew of Sound of Metal, including our director, Darius Marder.
Hi.
And some of this amazing cast, including we've got Riz and Paul and Chelsea and Shaheem here. Thanks to everybody for being here. And we're also joined by Clayton Davis from Variety, who will be our moderator for today. So congratulations on the film, everyone. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be able to include it in AFI Fest. And now I'm gonna pass it over to Clayton. Take it away.
Cool, let the fun begin. So can I just say this, seeing the group of you together, the first thing that came to me was like, this is like a family reunion. Like there's so much love here. It's like you guys went to high school together. You know, you guys just graduated probably like 3 years ago, so it's fine. But especially you, Darius. Darius, like you're just like a beam of love that like these are like just like they just came. You grew up with them. Like how did that manifest on when you're filming?
Well, I mean, the thing is when you fight this hard to make something, you better find some joy in it. And that's the kind of great irony and paradox of filmmaking. There's so much at stake and so much, you know, there's a limited time and limited money. But if that's your focus, then there's no energy, you know? And I was just so grateful to be making it with these people who have so much heart and love and desire to be doing this work and to be filling this script with their energy. That, man, it was just genuine, you know? I just really care for these people.
Yeah, I mean, look, first movie out the gate, and you land Riz Ahmed. Riz, I mean, we've followed your work for years. Great in Nightcrawler. Terrific in The Night Of, Rogue One, obviously, because you got to bring up Star Wars because we have to. It's part of the mantra. So, I mean, what attracted you to this script, this character? How'd you get involved with it?
I just feel like so lucky to have been part of this project. I feel like it's a really rare kind of movie, to be honest, and not just because of the story it tells, or the characters that it depicts, but because of the kind of energy that you're talking about. And I think that is down to Darius, both the way that he's kind of led this kind of family really in making this project, as you said, with love and leading by example and such generosity, but also in the script. And before I'd met Darius, it was a script that really kind of swept me off my feet. I think I was in LA just after, I think it was like some awards season kind of thing, or I think The Night Of, it just had its kind of, the Emmys and stuff. And I don't know, I just felt like I'd spent many years, probably about 10 years or so in the UK, just making independent movies, small indie movies like Four Lions or Shifty or Road to Guantanamo or Ill Manners. And that was kind of like my deal, and I was kind of very happy doing that. And it was only after The Night Of I started doing much bigger American movies, and that was new to me, and that was an interesting experience, and I loved it, and I learned a lot from it. But something in me really wanted to go back to doing something smaller, much more intimate, really. Something that was just all about the people making it, and it was all hands on deck and a bit of a family affair. And that's what this immediately kind of struck me as reading the script.
Yeah, also, and Paul, your role here, I mean, you really kind of run through a lot of different emotions in the film, and your interactions. I know that you've done a lot in the Hollywood business, working with TV and film, getting to work with Darius, a first-time filmmaker. Like what did that do for you in terms of just getting opportunity to work on a story such as this, something you probably haven't done before?
Well, for me, it was just a gift from heaven directly to me, because the role itself is so much close to a lot of my own personal experiences. So I got to bring all that with. So it was just a gift, a real gift. And I have to say, when I got there for the filming in Boston, Darius had already started a family atmosphere there. And when I got there, all the deaf characters were starting to arrive. And you see that house that we live in the trailer where they're driving up and they see this big white house. Darius even, I remember at one point he was talking about, hey, we should all live in this house together. But he was, you know, when Aerosmith made their Toys in the Attic album, they lived in a house and they stayed with each other for a month. That's what Darius was proposing. However, I guess there's rules that SAG wouldn't let you do that. But everybody had such a backstory. Everybody knew what we were doing in that movie. So, you know, typically when you make a movie, everything that you like is on the cutting floor, and what's left on the screen is, you know, that's a great John Malkovich thing that movies is crazy. But whatever you see on the screen, there's so much richness in the characters between each other. There's so much love there already that whatever you see on the screen just spills out from all the back life history that Darius helped us create together.
Yeah,
it was fantastic.
It's interesting you mentioned that leave it on the editing floor, because Darius, I know you've done some editing yourself prior to this. So you had some skill in knowing what to leave and what not to leave. I mean, Darius, I was watching, you know, I watched the film, and, you know, congratulations. And I say this not too often about some first-time directors. I'm like, God, if this is your first one, what's going to come like when like you take the reins off and just let you kind of go? Was this, every director kind of has that one passion project, but you exude passion every frame, through the characters, through the story, everything. Like, you believe in it. Is this your passion project? Did we just get it nice and early with you?
I love that you're saying early. Like what about me looks early? No, I mean,
we just graduated high school. We just talked about this.
Yeah, it's a passion project. I mean, you know, I was just, you know, Derek Cianfrance, my dear friend and writing partner. We were just talking yesterday, and this began, you know, we first talked about this 13 years ago. We were talking about that yesterday. It's definitely a passion project. But also, you know, I think that so many first-time films are some of the best films, you know. For my focus is just the desire to maintain that kind of energy and that passion through everything I do, you know. I just hope for that. And this project was special, you know, this group of people, you know. I had the same experience meeting you, Chelsea, and how you know, rich and alive that experience was. And I remember talking to you for the first time, Shaheem, and just this dream of bringing you from Los Angeles to this project. And, you know, it was such, everything was such a fight, you know, everything was nothing was easy. It was all born of this desire to see this thing made. And, you know, I think the problem with filmmaking is when it gets easy, you know? So I'm not really looking forward to that. You know, I'm not really worried about it. I don't think it'll ever get easy, but I think that part of that struggle and the desire is so intrinsic to what makes work.
For sure. Chelsea and Shaheem and we, again, we're gonna have to give more props to Darius here. Just in September, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced new diversity and inclusion standards for films. I did a story on it and about how there's a lot of misrepresentation, not a lot of representation in Hollywood, and people always go, obviously, through race and ethnicity. But disability is a part of that inclusion standard. To date, Academy has only nominated 2 disabled actors for Academy Awards. And you guys are going to be new to this space. And Darius didn't just use some extras from the street. You know, he went and got people who lived the experience. Starting with you, Chelsea, how does that feel in your first movie now to look forward in an industry that is looking to be more inclusive and to invite all of us into the fray?
You know, really, I think the opportunity is incredible because Darius wanted real. He wanted the deaf community to be in the film. And truth be told, that's so rare. And I'm beyond honored to be a part of it. And films from here on out, I would hope that we can see representation of actual folks, not that you need to look for people because they're deaf, but you look for actors because they're good and they happen to be deaf. Oftentimes we see hearing people in roles that play as a deaf person or an able-bodied person that plays as a disabled person. And my hope is that this is representative of a new future so that people who are from the disabled community or people who are from the deaf communities get work because they're just talented.
I think Shaheem agrees with that. Shaheem, what are your thoughts on that?
Well,
yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with Chelsea. You know, a lot of people, I feel like, especially in the entertainment industry with movies, a lot of people are involved in making movies, and for this to be as well, you know, for my first movie, I'm very grateful to Darius to be involved in such a project that has inspiration through the roof for the deaf community. And honestly, to understand deaf culture, it's not always the easiest thing to see, you know, what their needs are, but to be patient with us on set and off, and, you know, to listen. That's the key thing, to listen to us, to respect us and the cultural differences. But wow, to Darius and the whole project.
I'd love to add to what Shaheem just said in terms of space before, during, and after. Darius really talked about so many things, and we talk about it in the film. We still talk about it today. Disability in film is so important, and the conversation, I think, should continue.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I got Papa Darius here. They all love you. Look at that. I told you, it's a love fest here, and I love to see it. Riz, you know, you're a musician. You love music, and this movie, you know, as much as it is about someone losing their hearing, also it's about inner passion, about what you're willing to give up or what you're chasing after, even when there's obstacles in front of you that can be something that could take you out of it. How did that connection work for you when taking on the role or interpreting the character?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's quite a specific story in terms of this guy who's a drummer and the obstacle that he faces, and he enters a very specific world, which, as you said, you know, is portrayed with a lot of love and you know, and authenticity in terms of people in these roles. But I guess even though or perhaps because it's such a specific experience, I think that kind of underlying emotional journey of what is it like to lose something you love? What is it like to lose your idea of who you thought you were? I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, and certainly I can relate to, you know, having gone through certain obstacles and wondering if I can continue doing what I love doing. And so, yeah, I think, you know, as Paul was saying, Darius kind of encouraged us all to bring a lot of ourselves to the project and a lot of ourselves to the roles, so we could kind of bounce off each other in a way that just felt quite raw. And so, yeah, I guess, you know, into this very kind of specific mode of this story, we were all able to kind of bring our own personal kind of, I don't want to say kind of demons, but yeah, you know, our baggage and our own kind of stuff that we were working through. So yeah, it was interesting because in that house where everyone's living, you know, up in the movie, it is a kind of a place for kind of healing and communication and stepping out of your own experience into other people's. In many ways, I feel like the making of this film was also like that. You know, it often happens that the making of a film mirrors the story in a film. And to that end, I feel like the making of this film was a process of us all kind of gathering these people from completely different backgrounds and stepping out of our own experience into this bubble where we were kind of working through some stuff, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so what you're saying is that you brought the blonde hair to the role, is what you were going with? Like that was
Yeah,
your
blonde is my natural color.
You did bring the blonde hair. Yeah, that was inspired.
Was that Riz's call?
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if that was a kind of Jedi mind
He
trick.
doesn't wanna-
Kind of,
hold on.
Darius
Oh,
kind of
Riz,
like guiding me gently.
there
to
is
use the
no
blonde.
question that was your call.
use the blonde.
And let me just prove that it was your call.
Oh,
I'm going to throw it down. Place Beyond, it just so happened to be very close to Ryan's character in Place Beyond the Pines, which I never would have chosen. So
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was just fascinating. I actually loved it because, I really, you were looking to expand into something that was completely new territory and something that brought you into a completely different place and feeling. And I just thought it was so inspired. And it just really did do exactly that. I thought it was incredibly brave, like everything you did in this movie. It was just super brave.
Question here, I guess, is about the experience that the audience goes through when they're watching the movie. We're inside Riz's head, and we are hearing what he's hearing, and whether it's distorted or whether he's actually losing it, or when he does hear. One thing I want to know, Riz, like obviously that comes in post-production when Darius is cutting it together. When you're filming it, how did you get to decipher like what was happening? Like, did you guys do any type of like exercises, or were there times that you just like kind of plugged your ears? How did those moments work?
Yeah, well, obviously my character Ruben goes on a journey from hearing towards deafness, and he spends a portion of the film hard of hearing and undergoes this process of hearing loss. So in order to kind of approximate an experience of that, we did at some times for certain scenes use a kind of hearing devices, I guess you could call them, a kind of a hearing aid that was planted deep into my ear canal, so that I wasn't able to hear myself or other people on set, just to kind of try and sink ourselves into that situation a bit more. But I guess in terms of the audience's experiences of this whole process, as viewers, it's interesting because usually when you finish a scene on a film, a sound recordist will come up and say, all right, everyone say your lines again now. We want to record the lines wild in case you need to move the dialogue around in the edit. And this time, our sound man would come up with a giant kind of hexagonal sound rig and put it against my chest and say, blink, and now swallow, and now move your tongue around inside your mouth, now breathe in and breathe out. And the soundscape, the sound design of the film is kind of a piece together from that inner world, that very subjective experience of Ruben, because as he loses his hearing, he starts to hear more of his kind of internal processes, vibrationally. So it is quite immersive in that sense. And, the sound on this film, I think, is pretty unique.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of the scene in which it's you and Olivia Cook. Shout out to Olivia Cook, who's not here. Obviously, we love her too. That scene in which like you're destroying everything. Yeah, you kind of are breaking everything, and you're screaming. I'm thinking in that scene, like, how much does he hear of that moment? Because you're so in it. Like, sometimes you could just see when an actor is in the moment, and it's one of those things you can pick up on. Without like a lot of takes, like how did that work for you guys? How many things did you get to break, I guess is the goal question.
Do you remember that, Riz? Do you remember?
Yeah, the breaking stuff was tricky because, I guess we didn't have the longest amount of time to make this film, but Darius was always fighting for us to kind of have the space we needed to try things out and to experiment, much to his credit. But, yeah, it was, a lot of what I guess you see was, we would kind of, unless something went drastically wrong, we would kind of shoot a few and move on. And that was usually because actually the atmosphere and the energy on set felt so lived in and felt so real that we kind of would hit a rhythm in the day, and then we would just kind of keep going without kind of stopping to look back too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I won't say it wasn't like it was caught on the fly. It's very considered in the way that it's shot and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't dwell on kind of trying to make anything overwrought. So
Clayton, that particular scene, I mean, Riz really put himself in a place of giving into a loss of control. And that's a very rare thing to experience when an actor does it. And it's not something that can really be faked. It's something you feel. And that scene was, even thinking about it now, even though I've watched the film and cut the film many, many times, in thinking about the moment, that was a next level energy moment from Riz, so much so that our UPM shut the set down because it was so raw and felt so unbelievably almost dangerous that there was only one take for that. There couldn't be another take. And oftentimes I quite like when there's one take because, and that's another reason to shoot on 35 as we did and stuff, because it's so often when you feel like it's all about, don't worry, we'll get it later. You kind of lose that lifelike quality. And I just remember Riz, you really stepping out for that scene in a way that was very intense.
I'm glad you brought up the, you cut it many, many times. What is the director's cut of this? Like, how long is this? Because I, as you're watching, you're like, he wanted to leave so much more here.
There was a lot. I mean, I think the first cut was, I don't remember if it was 4 hours, but it might've been 3.5. It's a big cut. I mean, there's so much wonderful stuff and there's so much stuff in the deaf community here that it was hard to put it all on the floor, but that's part of the beauty of the process. I really love the film that I watch now. I don't miss stuff in a certain way. You miss it in one way, but I don't miss it because I think the film is honed down to what it should be,
Future Criterion, maybe. So let's we'll get that director's cut.
I'd love that.
We have to talk about how did Chelsea and Shaheem and Paul, angels sent down from heaven for you for this movie. How did you find them? Are they on loan from God? What happened there?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. God was really good to me. Really, I mean, I think for you guys, it was, Chelsea, I felt such a connection to you the moment I met you. Chelsea's local in Boston, and that was very special to, we did some role playing in an audition, I remember, and just, I could tell that it was a very special role for Chelsea, and the same with Shaheem. I kind of found you, Shaheem, and just reached out and we had a conversation, and it was so exciting to think of, right? You remember that?
Oh yeah. No, I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, it was fun. And
I remember that day, Darius. I remember it quite well. I actually remember the audition in Boston, and getting there, I saw you outside and I didn't realize that you were the director. And I went into the audition and I thought, wow, this connection is so real. And just feeling your energy and your want to understand the deaf community, that's special in a person that we don't often see. And as people often share about Darius, not only did he have that energy and respect for us, but the entire deaf community as a whole really was incredible.
Yeah. Well, it's such a special process. And then finding Paul is almost ineffably crazy.
Was it in a tattoo shop, or was it just you guys just
one could never possibly hope, this is a very big role to fill, that role of Joe, to find someone with a kind of level of talent that Paul has and the specificity that brought him to this role. Paul is a 2-time Vietnam veteran who has taught AA groups, who's CODA, who has lived as an intermediary between the deaf and the hearing world your whole life, Paul, whose first language is ASL, who is utterly enmeshed in the deaf community, but also is in between both the deaf and the hearing community and thusly ignored and seemingly invisible because we don't really think about codas, And
Clayton, if I could just add, so because I don't want this to go, so I'm a stage actor primarily, and I have a Black Sabbath tribute band here in LA, but very rarely do I get a chance to do something like this. So I put I read the script and I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is me. And my agent says, so I get somebody to do the audition on tape. We send it in. I don't know, a couple of days later, my agent calls the casting person and says, did you look at Paul's tape? They say, we've given up. We've looked everywhere. We're just going to go with a name. I don't want to say the name here, but and my agent begged them, please look at this tape. Well, we can't find it. And then they finally found it. It was on the bottom of the stick. I guess apparently a ton
Always
of
the
things.
bottom.
Always the bottom.
I'm out.
Always the bottom.
And 5 minutes later, she calls back and says, Darius wants to talk to this guy right away. So if it wasn't for my agent calling and saying, hey, would you, because they had, at that point had given up and we're just going to go with something. I don't know what they were going to do. But anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I cannot help but stress that.
Well, it was just an incredible thing. And Paul happened to be coming to Rhode Island and was in a CODA convention in Rhode Island. So I drove to Rhode Island right away to meet him. And as soon as I got there, he looked at me and he said, you're not allowed to be here. And that was the first thing you said to me, Paul. I loved it.
It's because CODA is Children of Deaf Adults. It was a big
Not Darius. There's no room for Darius in that group.
If your parents are not deaf, you're not allowed at the convention.
I know,
So
I totally
was sneaking
understand.
him in. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was great. But anyway, yeah, a very special bit of casting to find Paul. And Paul is really an undiscovered gem. Paul there's a level of talent in Paul that I think the whole world is about to see. And I feel like unbelievably grateful to have filled the role of Joe with a person such as yourself, Paul.
I have to end with this last question because, again, I think you guys are just one of the rare examples that we see of, not just like, it's an overused term. It was a labor of love. Like every movie is, but it's like, this is like love on a different level. And we are in a very divided time. And I think this is like one of the prime examples, I think, of like, what happens if you just reach out and want to understand and learn from people who are different from you? What do you guys know that the rest of everyone doesn't know? What can we say to everyone watching to bring some stability back to this time?
I don't know what we can do to heal the world or anything like that, but I just want to speak from the experience that we had. I think that, there's a lot of ignorance within the hearing community about the deaf community. And I think understandably from friends that I've spoken to and speaking to, you, Chelsea and Shaheem, and also Jeremy, there is understandable mistrust in the deaf community of many hearing people because of the marginalization that people have experienced. And it wasn't a straightforward experience, kind of bridging some of those divides and finding, common language, a common ground, a common kind of mission. But we did it, and it was a beautiful thing. And just speaking personally, this has been one of the most profoundly enriching experiences of my life, just being able to, even just learn ASL and, befriend people within the deaf community and just to have this experience. And I guess for me, the big lesson is stepping outside of your own experience, stepping outside of your comfort zone to meet other people where they are at, to meet people halfway is transformative, you know? And as much as in this moment of us talking about, you know, identity politics and, you know, that's really important, but I worry about a world where we're restricted from stepping out of our lanes, you know, and not stepping out actually of our experience to kind of learn from other people's experiences. And I know, just speaking personally, this was a big learning experience for me, and I hope it will be transformative for audiences, just in the way it was for all of us who made this film.
Awesome. I think I have to ask Chelsea and Shaheem, how do you say Sound of Metal in sign language? I've been like dying to like know after the movie was done. Forget teach
There it is. So we gave the movie this sign name, Sound of Metal. So, and the reason is because the vibration comes from your heart, and you can see where the heart and the hand is, and the vibration that comes out from it.
And just love for Darius. I get it. It's fine. We can admit it.
That's not the translation.
Absolutely.
That's not the interpretation.
Well, Darius' sign name.
Yeah, we can leave it open to interpretation, right, Darius? We can leave it there.
Well, Chelsea gave me my sign name, right?
Yeah.
I did.
We're gonna share it?
Darius.
This is my sign name.
Is it the beard?
So yeah, you can. It's definitely the beard. In addition to the fact that he is such an analyst, if you will. He's like this wise soul that always sits back and thinks about the totality of what's happening.
I paid her.
Yeah. All right. We've been out of time, but to the audience, tell everyone you know to see Sound of Metal. It opens in theaters November 20th. Before it debuts on Prime on December 4th. And we want to hear from you, and we would love to hear from you. Use the hashtag AFIFest. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the whole cast and everyone for being here, and Darius. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton.